Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. Joe Samaniego here, along with Isha Azim, Jackson Lambros, and making his Grid Network debut from the Gay Racing Podcast, Alex Anderson. Alex, welcome to the Grid Network team.
Thank you. I'll tell you what, that intro music got me hyped. I'm ready to go. I'm ready.
A big favorite here, of course, Grid Live Pre-Race, and then, of course, having you on the team as well. Very exciting. We encourage everyone, be sure to show your support. Welcome Alex. Best way you can do that, buy him a cup of coffee. Link in the video description. Be sure to put there in the message, this is for Alex. And, of course, you could buy a cup of coffee for Isha or Jackson as well, too. Definitely support all of us here at the Grid Network team. And, of course, you want to support the Grid Network, help all of us get to the track more frequently. $500 a month is our goal on Patreon. We're slowly getting there. Colin, the show, Mark, Rob, and David, the newest one, have been investing in us for quite a long time, helping us pay the bills and staying on the air. And we have a lot to talk about, and we'll get started with something a little bit different just because of some of the time constraints. We have the Repco Supercars series to talk about, and they've had a very crazy first race, controversial ending to the Sydney Super Sprint night race, where we saw in that race, we saw Brody Kosecki take the win because of penalties. We saw William Brown. He was second place. He was the points leader coming into this race. He gets bunted. Very unhappy, gets a penalty. Cam Waters, was in second place. Will Brown did get penalized as well, too. Shane Van Gisbergen was penalized for the contact with Will Brown, while Cam Waters got the penalty for unsafe release. So a lot happening in that race. And when it comes to it, overall, it's just going to be one of those deals where in the point standings, we now have Brody Kosecki essentially leading his teammate. Shane Van Gisbergen, surprisingly, has not won a race since April in the Supercar Series. Quite a long winless streak. And, of course, we know him and Brody Kosecki, the points leader, they're coming to Indianapolis for the NASCAR Verizon 200 at the Brickyard. Got to start with you, Alex, as well as Jackson. How exciting is this to see NASCAR gaining attention from international drivers? Because besides the two supercar drivers, we're going to have Jenson Button back again, but we also have Kamui Kobayashi, one of the best sports car racers out there. He's coming there. Alex, what do you thought of this stacked field for Indy?
Man, I'll tell you what, having two supercars drivers is going to be so much fun. And, you know, Shane Van Gisbergen's been dominating over there, but I didn't realize Brody Kosecki was, like, leading the championship and everything. That's going to be so much fun. Like, man, if that's better than SVG's coming over, I mean, I can't wait. And you mentioned Kamui Kobayashi. I've loved what he's done over in IMSA, what I've seen. Then Jenson Button's always fun to watch, too. A lot to look forward to for that.
Couldn't agree more, Alex, and a happy race weekend to everybody in chat. You look back at where this kind of trend has started of this V8 Supercars pipeline, and it really did start with the captain, Roger Penske, bringing in Scott McLaughlin. And I feel like ever since then, just racing in America in general has been so much more open to having drivers, not just from other countries, but other disciplines. And we see that not just drivers from V8 Supercars, but from IndyCar, from sports cars, from all different walks of racing, and for it to become this melting pot of talent, this proving ground of talent at the World Center of Racing, it's going to be something real special, Joe.
Going to be real special. A lot to look forward to with that IndyCar NASCAR weekend at Indianapolis. Bench and I welcoming Alex to the team as well, too, so very excited. We're going to bring Isha back because, Jackson, we got to talk about Formula One. A very dramatic, at the same time, somewhat predictable sprint race.
That is right, Joe. Belgian Grand Prix, of course, one of the most historic and world-renowned tracks, not just for Formula One, but for the racing world, home of the famous and challenging Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And for the first time, a sprint race, and of course, the weather being a huge factor. Still, Max Verstappen, despite despite pitting during the lead, manages to take the lead and take the win. Tomorrow, however, due to penalties, he will be starting in 6th place. But like today, weather could be a factor tomorrow. So the question is then, is this deja vu of Verstappen come to the front again, or does anyone have the opportunity to bring anything to the table? Start off with Alex.
Man, everyone always gets all excited that Verstappen's not going to win. But then he does anyway. It happens every week. It happened last week with Hamilton getting on the pole, and then Max is leading after one corner. And then today I see Piastri's leading. I was like, oh, cool. And then I turn it on and Verstappen's in the lead. So, yeah, it's deja vu. It happens every week. I'm just kind of used to it with F1 at this point.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Alex here. Last weekend at the Hungaroring, I was really optimistic that maybe McLaren Lando Norris would take the lead. But, every weekend, no matter what conditions or circumstances you put Max Verstappen in, he always comes back to take the lead. So I think we're going to see some deja vu again. Even though Charles Leclerc is going to be starting on P1 tomorrow, I don't think it's any big deal for Max Verstappen to overtake 4 or 5 cars easily. So I think we're definitely going to see him win the race again tomorrow.
It is shades of Lewis Hamilton, guys. Lewis Hamilton in 2018, 2019, just always finding his way up front. But let's talk about who could still potentially challenge the win here. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc will be starting on pole tomorrow, but today, after no real pace and Sainz losing his position in the pit stops, it's still, as always this season, questionable for how the Scuderia will end up. Hamilton penalty for contact with Checo Perez, who retired after grip issues and a damaged side pod. And this allowed Pierre Gasly a third place in something that Alpine wants to see desperately. Almost instantly after we had a chat on Grid Tonight last Wednesday, Alan Permain and Otmar Schnauzer both out huge moves at the corporate level for that Alpine team. Pat Fry leaving for Williams, improving from being constantly last. Guys, could this help set up Alpine for a strong weekend and something special? Isha, what do you think?
I think that tomorrow we could definitely see them get in the top 10. I don't know if we're going to see both drivers up there, but Pierre Gasly's lead driving from, today's spots and P3, I think he definitely has a good chance tomorrow of scoring points. I don't know if both of the drivers are going to be able to tomorrow, but I think that they've got a great opportunity for tomorrow, and I think that they're definitely going to see some points at least.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you'll see both of them up there, but Pierre, he just has these breakout runs every once in a while, and that'd be amazing for Alpine if he could keep it up there. And just in the sprint, getting P3, that's incredible for him. Love that.
And Alex, how special are those Pierre moments? Not only just those moments where he kind of comes up sneaky, and just the amount of excitement that not only the sport has when that happens, but the excitement you can hear in his voice on the radio could be something genuinely special this weekend. So let's talk about the start of this race, and of course something that's been going on this whole weekend, heavy rain, which led to us starting the sprint race with 4 laps behind the safety car, giving us not a 15, but an 11-lap sprint race. We know the discussion of safety has been ramping up lately with, sadly, 2 tragic accidents in just the past 5 years, along with several horrific accidents that could have had drivers not walking away. Guys, how concerning is it with wet weather on the forecast and a potentially more wet race than today?
Yeah, I don't know. Spa just has a bad reputation, and I saw my friend Elizabeth Blackstock put on Twitter that it's kind of like IndyCar and Pocono's relationship, where it's kind of like we want to race there, but the vibes just aren't great. And I don't know. I'm hoping that tomorrow that they'll have a safe race, or it doesn't get flooded, just somewhere in the middle if it has to rain.
Yeah, I agree with Alex. I think the weather is a concerning factor for tomorrow because Spa is a bit of a dangerous track. We have really high speed sectors of it. And I think that with the rain, it could definitely slow things down a little bit. And I think we might even see, a crash, hopefully not. But I think the weather is a big factor for tomorrow's race, and I think it is going to be concerning. So I think it's definitely something that all the teams and drivers have to watch out for and, make plans for.
You can make a race car as safe as possible, and at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to have any use if you're unable to see the guy that's 20, 30 feet in front of you. And visibility in heavy rain is something that's always been an issue. Joe and my NASCAR guys, you know why it's taken so long for us to be able to, have short track racing in the wet now for the first time this season. And it's just a matter of, is this a venue where rain is going to be safe? And we've seen it time and time again here at Spa for decades. More often than not, it's going to lead to chaos.
For sure.
Could lead to chaos. And of course, one of the races we anticipate a lot of chaos. You mentioned, Jackson, short track racing, NASCAR, there at Richmond. Isha, what can you tell us about this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, now, turning towards NASCAR, Richmond Raceway's Cookout 400 will be a key race for several drivers in the playoff bubble. However, one driver in the battle is not here. AJ Allmendinger, he's on the pole for Road America, missing practice and qualifying. And, taking a look at his track record at Richmond, it's not good. And the idea of missing out and starting at the back of the field. So, Alex, let's start with you. What do you think? Is this a smart move by AJ to skip out for Road America?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of AJ Allmendinger skipping practice and qualifying because he's on the cut line for the playoffs. And if Colleague Racing and AJ are serious about making the playoffs, they need all the stage points, and he's gonna be starting in the back because he's not qualifying. It's just very silly. It's probably a sponsor that wants him to race in Road America, which I get it, but you don't really want that. I just feel like they're taking an unnecessary risk in making the playoffs, and they very well could.
Yeah, I just don't get this either. He's so close to the playoff picture. I get the idea. It's just going to be a tough track. You're probably going to be starting in the back, but missing out on that practice might be only 20 minutes or so. You can pick up something for that one position because we've seen time and time again, every single point counts. We've seen drivers miss the playoffs by 1 point, make the playoffs by 1 point, advance to the next round by a single point. Sure, AJ Allmendinger, that team, they could spin it that, would have made much of a difference by going there and getting this. This could help AJ have positive momentum. I say, well, you could have the opposite effect. You could have a horrible Road America, horrible race weekend, and then he comes here even more dejected because he just missed out on a big win, potentially, at the Xfinity Series. Overall, I just really question this move. I think you brought up a good point, Alex. Maybe there was a sponsorship role in this as well because it just doesn't make sense, especially how close the championship battle is for those last few spots.
Yeah, and it just kind of reminds me of like when Kyle Busch would run Xfinity races all the time, and they had to put a cap on it so he wouldn't dominate all the time. It's probably a very similar situation. It was just all sponsorship focused.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. This move isn't exactly setting him up for success for the race, and points really matter. And taking a look at his points, he's in 17th. He's 17 points behind Michael McDowell, and he finished 6th place last time in Richmond. He's also 10 points behind Bubba Wallace, who was 22nd last time. So starting with Joe this time, do you think Michael McDowell can overtake Bubba?
Very much so. Michael McDowell has had a really good season so far overall, just putting together some great, strong runs. One of the big things, that team, I feel they got momentum. We've talked about that quite a bit on the show, and the drivers will tell you that, especially in this time of the season, that midsummer stretch, no off weekends. If you could just have good run after good run, you just seem to get it. 23-11, I just don't see them exactly stepping it up at this track. It seemed where we were talking about Bubba Wallace having strong runs earlier on has seemed to fade away. Overall, I think Michael McDowell, he could really put himself in a situation where he could get those points. He could put himself in a good safe spot ahead of Bubba Wallace. And with that said, I think he could really potentially put himself in a situation to be comfortable entering the two road courses. If he gets to win there, even better. He's going to be in a really good spot.
Yeah, I think this question depends on which 23 team shows up, because you either have the 23 team that can run top 10, top 5, and run up there the entire race, get a bunch of stage points, or you're going to get the 23 team who runs in the 20s and is just a non-factor. And the 34 car, although a smaller team, that is a much more consistent car the past couple years. So yeah, I think Michael McDowell. Like if you're choosing who's going to make the playoffs between the two, I'd say Michael McDowell would definitely be my pick over Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, definitely. And, if we take a look at the top 10 now, Ty Gibbs also finished in the top 10. So this battle for the final playoff spots will be heavily contested. And another potential battle we could see is Kyle Larson versus Denny Hamlin. Both of them have had success on this track, and we could see both of them potentially up towards the front. Pocono is fresh on everyone's mind. So starting with Alex this time, how hard do they race each other, and could we potentially see some payback?
I mean, if you're going to do payback anywhere, it's going to be at a short track. And these two are both really, really good. And if you listen to my podcast, the Gay Racing Podcast, my friend Zach and I, we both picked Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin to win this race. So I could totally see a situation where Kyle Larson goes and gives a Denny Hamlin a bump and run to win this race. Because, I mean, he owes him twice now for Kansas and Pocono. I think he'd be more than justified to do that. And I don't think Denny Hamlin's going to change the way he's racing because he was raced against very aggressively last year against Ross Chastain. So I don't think anything's going to change with him.
I don't anticipate much change either because the way this is going, these two, they're going to be racing each other hard. No love lost, I think, between the two of them now, and it's going to be hard racing. And where I see the payback coming is when it comes to the closing stages of this race, because at the closing stages, we're going to see drivers going for the win, and this stage where there is those playoff points, that win is going to be very valuable. And I think at the end, you're going to see those two not give an inch, and they're going to start using up each other. And that's where I think at some point somebody's going to say, okay, I've gone from using you up to try to get around or ahead to I'm just going to move you out of the way. Richmond is the good place to do that. The one thing that's going to be interesting, I'm curious about your thoughts, Alex, on this. We've seen with this package how it is very hard to pass. The restarts are going to be very chaotic. Do you anticipate maybe on a restart, especially on overtime, somebody just moves the other person out of the way in that restart zone? Because that's been crazy lately.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the only opportunity you have to pass. Like, if you're Kyle Larson, you're restarting, like, let's say row 2 and Denny Hamlin's in row 1, that might be your only opportunity is to just push Denny Hamlin straight up into the corner in 1 and then go on and take the lead. That might be the only way, right? Like you said, with this package.
It'll be very interesting with this package just to see what's going to happen, because NASCAR Cup season been a lot of fun. We'll bring Jackson back in because normally we'll be talking about Formula E, but they're still going. Another red flag. They just got restarted, so hopefully by the time we finish Pick a Winner, we could talk a little bit about Formula E. You should take it away because we got a lot to talk about with this weekend.
Yep. So time for the fun part now. Pick a winner where we can finally maybe catch up to Kobe before it's too late. Here we do have our updated standings. So starting with the Formula One Belgian Grand Prix, Alex, we'll start with you. Who do you choose for your pick a winner?
Max Verstappen. Easy.
Oh, it's me. Oops. All right. Tinfoil hat on, boys. So we know there's a potential of rain tomorrow. I'm predicting potentially a big incident in turn 1. Multiple cars involved. Potentially the first 3-4 rows. Who gets through? Fernando Alonso and George Russell.
Oh.
Two guys that are super good at racing in the wet. I'm going to give it to Fernando Alonso. If I can't catch Kobe going the normal route, let me do half court shots, man.
Oh man, if Fernando Alonso gets this win, not Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, and
racing will be broken, Joe.
Racing will be broken. That would be, oh my gosh. I agree. That first corner we've seen time and time again. You get the chaotic start, somebody screws up, and they take out 3 or 4 cars like a bowling alley. We also got Eau Rouge, which if it's wet, that first lap, somebody could go in there a little out of shape. But I feel seeing the first rows, I think Max is still going to get it just because I think he'll be far enough. I don't see him having a bad start. If anything, if something happens, Piastri might be the main person to worry about what happens behind him again, that first clean corner. So unfortunately, I'm going with Max Verstappen. get this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Alex and Joe on this one. Jackson, I think you've gone with a bold choice. But I was really optimistic last race at the Hungaroring. I went with Lando Norris, and this race, as much as I'd love to support Ferrari and go with Charles Leclerc, I just think that it's gonna be Max Verstappen again. There's no beating him right now. So I think
we've
I'll,
been
I'll I'll tell you what though, Jackson, you have what I hope happens. I don't know if that's going
I do
to
too.
happen. That's what I hope happens. Yeah.
And I say that despite knowing that, talking to one of my really good technical friends, Matt Massamori, that Adrian Newey, because of course he has built an excellent car that's able to perform around this track at all parts of it. And, I'm saying it's going to need some kind of wild card to bring that fight to it. But if it's wet at Spa, that heavily increases the chances. So I want it. The world wants it.
I want it.
All right, now let's take a look at Formula E, the London E Prix Race 2. Jackson, we'll start with you. Who is your pick a winner?
We were watching the broadcast just before hopping on here, and if I learned one thing, that is Sebastian Buemi is a man that is very fast, but is also fueled by hatred. We know that those envisions are fast. We know that he's angry. How about the former FE champ going off with a win? Give it to me.
That would be huge for the Envision team. Something to hang their heads up high when it comes to end of the season, considering when we talked about what happened today. I'm going to go with Mitch Evans. I think big thing we're going to be watching from him, he's going to race hard. Got the pole today. Just had the penalty, but he came up through the front. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Mitch Evans is my pick for tomorrow's race.
Yeah, and now taking a look at the second last race for this segment, NASCAR Cup Series Cookout 400, starting with Alex. Who will be your pick a winner?
I'm going with Kyle Larson, and I'm hoping that it's a bump and run on Denny Hamlin to win it. I want it so bad. It'd be lovely.
See, we did pick a winner Wednesday, and I chose Paul Tracy for the SRX win, so I don't know how qualified I am to do pick a winner anymore. But let's go Denny Hamlin. Why not?
Okay.
Oh, man. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson. I'm going to go with another Toyota, a sleeper, I think, just because everyone's picking Denny or Truex. I'm going with Christopher Bell. I think he's been very quiet. This is a great track for him to pick it up, get that win, and try to mount a strong run leading towards the playoffs. So put me down for Christopher Bell.
Good pick.
All right, those are all good choices, and now we have our last race for the segment, Supercars Race 2. Joe, you're the only one for this race. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, here in Shane Van Gisbergen has not won a race since April. I don't anticipate he's going to be my pick. But overall, I think I'm going to go with Will Brown. He was running pretty strong for the Supercar Series. Jackson, do you have any thoughts on this as well?
I covered this on Wednesday, and I am convinced I'm seeing success of a man who won just 2 races ago, did a Grand Slam, fellow representative of the House of Jack. It's Jack LeBrock. I want to see it.
Jack LeBrock, potential great choice for the Supercar Series. And, of course, we encourage everyone to comment with their pick-a-winners. And, of course, we do pick a winner on all our social media platforms as well. So be sure to follow Grid Network across social media when it comes to pick a winner and, of course, our live broadcast each and every week. Now, Formula E, they're about ready to get going, but we could talk about the first part of the race in which we saw a lot of chaos, a lot of hot tempers in this dramatic race. I felt this is more hot tempers than Martinsville lately with the new Gen car. Envision Racing, a lot of hot temper there, a lot of people unhappy because we saw Nick Cassidy on pole. He has the lead. Looks like Buemi was going to be the wingman, second place. But then when Nick Cassidy fell to third for taking his attack mode, he got around. But then when he tried to get around Buemi got into him, damaging his front wing. Cassidy fell all the way back, and then he had to retire. His potential championship hopes are done with this because right now, as it stands, Evans in the lead, and you have Jake Dennis in third place, 18 points. That could really put Nick Cassidy in a hard must-win situation. But Nick Cassidy, we heard on the radio, not happy with the team at all. The race has reported that Nick Cassidy will be leaving this team to go to Jaguar to join fellow countryman and championship contender Mitch Evans. Of course, Jaguar powertrains are used by Envision, so very interesting dynamic. I gotta ask you, starting with you, Jackson, surprised by how Envision gave no team orders and let this sloppy race between the two teammates occur and potentially take away the drivers' championship and cost him a points team's championship?
It's a tough question, Joe. I want to say that they should have had team orders, but the question that I'm asking myself is, would that have led Cassidy and Buemi with a more sour taste in their mouth, not being able to fight it out? And I think, as much as this seems like the prime time to say stay in your position, guys, I think that the best strategy, if you're doing a Hail Mary like Envision right now, is to just let them go at it. Not only is that, I think, the best option for the team, but for better or for worse, it's going to be a better experience for the fans and not a great experience for the team. But man, did we get a show on TV.
Yeah, I haven't really watched Formula E much this year. This is like my second time watching it this year. That was quite interesting seeing how that played out. And Nick Cassidy was so mad afterward that he told CBS to go away like 3 times or something. It was quite interesting to watch for sure.
Quite interesting to watch when a driver's telling the TV crew, I need some privacy with my team. That is just not a good sign. Now, one of the big things, of course, this race, 2 red flags. They're about ready to get going with a 2-lap shootout. And one of the big things we're seeing, Jackson, when it comes to this race, Andretti, they get their powertrain from Porsche. Now, of course, Porsche, they're trying to win the points championship for the team as well. Pascal Wehrlein looks like he might be out of reach. So Andretti was anticipating a much more help from the Porsche team. That didn't happen. In fact, Jake Dennis, he was having to race him really hard. They were not giving him the room. Jake Dennis was on the radio complaining about this, and at the end, we even saw Michael Andretti lose his cool, leave the room. It looked like he was about to tell CBS, don't follow me as well, too. When it comes to this, Jackson, overall, do you anticipate that it's a realistic effort to think that Audi will be helping Jake Dennis try to win this race and this championship?
It's an IndyCar state of mind, I think, not just for Dennis, but for that whole Andretti team. Alex, one of my mottos for me personally is all roads lead back to IndyCar in here. And we've seen these kind of engine cooperations, especially at the Indy 500. We're both Chevy powered. Let's work together. Let's trade drafting for the lead. Even then, if we get to a position in IndyCar where by Laguna Seca, it's 2 Chevys or 2 Hondas in a title fight, do we think they're going to be working with each other? I think it's the same treatment that Envision is giving their 2 drivers. Have at it, guys. I think it's, at this point, a free-for-all, and I feel like that should be expected.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you, I made a tweet, or I guess they're not tweets now, but whatever they're called on X. I posted, watching Formula E is just like watching IndyCar. Why? Because Michael Andretti is mad. And I think that is the most accurate thing ever. Because he's just, whenever they have a camera on him, he's mad because Grosjean crashed or Colton Herta, they
reasons, but yeah,
messed up his pit stop. Like, he's just always mad. So, yeah, I don't know. Poor Michael Andretti. That's all I got to say.
Also, Elon, what do we call, are they X's? What are tweets now?
I have no idea.
These are questions we need to ask Alex.
Could be instead of tweeting, exiting, but I think that's what a lot of people are already doing, just exiting that platform now. So
yeah, may as well. I mean, Threads has a following tab now. Just X out of X and go over to the one with the better site.
Now, one of the things it was reported earlier, the new CEO of Formula E, he said he wants, just like what Formula One's doing, a second race in the United States. Now, of course, the easiest option to do that is make the Portland race weekend a doubleheader. But when it comes to Formula E, we know compared to F1, it's not exactly the biggest fan base. It's behind NASCAR, IndyCar. It's not exactly one of the most popular sports in the United States when it comes to motorsports. Jackson, do you see two races for Formula E being viable? And if so, do you think it should be Portland doing it twice? Or do you see another track potentially? Because these Formula E cars are very unique.
Joe, I'm going to say, as much as I love Portland and I love your neck of the woods, there's something just so uncanny about seeing those race cars on a normal racetrack and not on a street circuit. That being said, I think just the racing model in general here in America is improving, and I think whatever kind of racing it is, it's going to be, there's going to be fans. And I think Formula E has an awesome opportunity where, because you don't have those sound restrictions or maybe those emission restrictions, you're able to run in markets and areas where maybe you wouldn't be able to see an IndyCar or an IMSA race. And I swear to God, there's zero bias here. I definitely don't go to school down here, but IMSA used to run on the streets of the Del Mar Fairgrounds, and there has not been a race. There hasn't been a race south of Long Beach in California since the late 80s. And personally, I would love to see Formula E come back to California, but just racing back in San Diego at Del Mar, I think, would be super special.
Yeah, wasn't Formula E racing in New York City at one point?
Was in New York City, was in Long Beach.
Okay.
Am I?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh
if they wanted to do,
yeah.
if they wanted to be like a support race for one of the F1 races, I could totally see that happening. I don't know if that's a thing that happens, but I don't know. I think Long Beach would be cool though, because Long Beach is a lot of fun.
The main reason I feel like Long Beach didn't get a huge catch is, unfortunately, big IndyCar weekend and just such a different vibe, I would say. Going there, going from stadium super trucks, going flying off ramps to cars that practically make no sound. Even though the racing itself is good, I think it would need to be a venue completely independent of itself, or a separate weekend at Long Beach.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens in the chat room. Adam saying, Jackson, I remember when IMSA ran at Del Mar Fairgrounds, it was the season finale. And also welcoming Alex, Formula E at Portland. Road America. Oh, man.
Ooh,
I
love Road America.
We thought the pack racing at Portland was something else. That would be insane. Also, FE has so much potential for awesome cities. When it comes to street courses, that's what their bread and butter is. Portland, very unique track. I feel if that was just at one time they were at a permanent road course, that could fit in, but I feel like their bread and butter is the street courses. Now, Formula E are under green in their final lap, and it looks like it's going to be Mitch Evans potentially taking that win. So with Mitch Evans taking that win for race one, Jake Dennis, though, is third, so it's not going to exactly be. Did you have that pick winner, Jackson?
Kobe and Josh, suck it, respectfully. Had it.
So
I'm a professional.
So one of the things, Mitch Evans coming around, they are already essentially going to look at, the championship picture now. Mitch Evans is going to be closing in a little bit on Jake Dennis, but it seems like Jake Dennis, a good, smart race where he doesn't get in trouble, score points, and as long as Mitch Evans doesn't do a clean sweep, which is going on right now, we're waiting for the timing to see if he gets the fastest lap points bonus. Do you see, Jackson, starting with you, do you see essentially Jake Dennis in control of the situation, one hand on the championship, as we would say?
Well, I mean, if Michael Andretti isn't happy right now, it's hard to say that they've got it as a done deal. I'm still saying that they definitely have the equipment. Jake Dennis absolutely has the talent. So for me, I think it's just a matter of what Jake Dennis can do. Doesn't have to walk away with a win. Keep the car in one piece, keep it in the top 5, have a good, clean race. And you've got it.
Yeah, as long as he finishes where he did today, tomorrow does he win the championship? Do we know that?
One of the big things we're looking at right now, as they are crossing the line,
Oh.
they have just added another lap to this race.
What?
It looks like it's coming to the end, and they just added one lap, so it's a second final lap to this race right now going on. So it's still the same. You have Mitch Evans, Tony Felix Acosta, Jake Dennis. Now there are reports, if this stands, potentially we could see this race end, and Jake Dennis could be your world champion.
Lock out for Jake Dennis? Oh my gosh.
And in fact, we're seeing also in the chat room some of our people saying Dennis will be the champion. And it's like,
how about that?
It has been
wow.
a long
Okay.
time since. I got to ask you, as they complete this final lap, starting with you, Alex, when a championship is wrapped up before the last race of the year, does this just make where that last race is real? Now everyone is just going for the win because there's no more championship on the line?
I don't think there's a problem if a championship ends before the final race of the year. It's probably going to happen in IndyCar this year. That's fine. Makes the final race interesting because then the championship's out the window. So then it's just like, well, I don't really have to respect my teammate if my team, like we just talked about, I don't have to respect my teammate if he would have run the championship. So, yeah, that's interesting.
It's a give and take with the championship fight going all the way, guys, because again, with that going all the way to the end, you have guys conserving, you know, I'm probably not going to make this move if it's going to ruin my shot at it. And I don't want to take any jabs at the NASCAR point system because enough people on this planet have already done that, but that's something that the chase kind of eliminates. But again, it builds excitement for it. But I have nothing against it, and knowing how hard those cars race already, if Jake walks away with this right now, yeah, it's gonna be chaos tomorrow. And by the way, what a great thing, not just for Jake Dennis, but for that whole Avalanche Andretti team. This is something that Michael and the whole crew, I think, needs, especially if they are still trying to climb that ladder up to F1.
And we can now report we saw at the finish line, and we'll bring Isha in as well for this, Antonio Felix Acosta in second place, handed a penalty, so Jake Dennis has moved up to second place. So without doubt, your world champion for FIA Formula E is Jake Dennis.
Wow.
Andretti is happy on camera now. So, of course, this is the first championship of the grid ranking that has been decided. We still have Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, bunch of races. So I brought in Isha because I'm going to ask Isha, starting with you, because I know you're really heavily watching Formula One. We know Max Verstappen seems to have a clean grasp on this championship when it comes to when he won this championship. Do you think it's just a matter of it's going to be very early? And do you think Red Bull could pull off the perfect season, winning every round?
Yeah, looking at Max Verstappen, I wish that I could say that the end of the season is going to look different and that, he might have a real competitor for the world championship. But with the performances he's put up the past few races, the streaks he has, the records that him and Red Bull together have broken, I think it's just insane. And I think he's definitely going to win at the end of this championship. And, as much as I'd like to see someone else, I think it's going to be him again this year.
I think, unfortunately, something that I was fearing wasn't going to happen with these regulations is something that, we've seen throughout the history of F1, which is this string of champions, and all the way back to, Michael Schumacher at the turn of the century, over to Vettel, over to Hamilton. And I can only hope that, this doesn't become a trend of Verstappen winning for the next handful of years until the next set of regulation changes. And I don't even know if Verstappen wants that. He said winning is boring. He said he wants to go try other things. But again, we know how dominant Red Bull is as a team and how dominant Newey is as a car designer. So it's hard for me to say, guys, but I think I speak for all of us when we feel like it's a matter of when, not if, for Max taking this championship. And I think the real question is, how much is this success going to spread into future seasons?
And I believe I saw a stat that said Verstappen could just finish second rest of the season and still win the championship. So he's got it. It's over. And that's fine. He's a dominant guy. I don't necessarily like that. But yeah, he's the best and he'll be the champion.
Now, for one of the most predictable ones, we're looking at to one of the least predictable ones, IndyCar, because what we saw this last race weekend, despite a pretty solid point save for Alex Palou, Newgarden with those sweep really closed in. So, Alex, starting with you, do you think this is something that Alex Palou still has firm control of, or do you think it's going to get close up to the point where it might come down to the last race?
Oh, man. Let me tell you, Joseph Newgarden still has a chance. It's an outside chance, mainly because St. Louis is still on the schedule. Because it's another oval, and he's probably going to win that, but he's going to need Alex Palou to finish like low top 10 or worse. And I don't know, if Alex Palou getting third in the second Iowa race, that really hurt a lot of the championship hopes for Joseph, I think. But it's still possible. I think Iowa definitely helped Joseph's chances. But Alex Palou, we're going to Nashville next. It's a street course. All of Ganassi's going to be really good there. So, yeah, I think it's hard to beat Alex Palou, but there's still a chance for Joseph Newgarden.
Alex, we know how chaotic Nashville has been in both of its runnings so far. Around half of the field has failed to retire. And with that mentality, you got to be thinking anything can happen next weekend at Nashville. And you might say that there might be a little bit of mojo for the defending Indy 500 champion coming home for the first time with the Borg Warner. So I think things could very much be in Newgarden's favor. Now, that being said, we know he was fast at Gateway. I still think Gateway is going to be anyone's game for an oval. We know the Penske's are fast, but that ball could certainly go towards Will Power or Scott McLaughlin. We know Malukas is fast there. I still think there are so many potential new winners for the rest of the season. And if Palou can stay consistent, then yeah, I think it's going to be for sure a hard to beat championship. But as I've said before, I think this championship fight is hard from Pullover.
That's a good play on words.
Nice.
Definitely far from over. One of the big things we want to encourage everyone, be sure to show your support for the Grit Network here, whether it's buying a cup of coffee for any one of our team members, subscribing to us right here on YouTube, and hit that bell icon so you get notified when we go on the air. We'll be on the air tomorrow, following the conclusion of the NASCAR race, or whichever race is the last race to wrap up. With the weather lately, you just seem to never know what's going to happen. But overall, very exciting race weekend. Come to the show, Mark, Robin, David. Thank you for keeping us on the air. And we'll see everyone tomorrow for Grid Life wrap-up. And then, of course, Grid tonight on Wednesday. And then we do this all over again. For Isha, Jackson, and Alex, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.